Hello and welcome to the follow along video for our perspective practice Bellringers. Today we are going to get started with our first 1-point perspective. I'd like to point out that we've got our horizon line, which represents our eye level or where the land and sky meet according to where you're standing. Now we are going to do this step by step together, and you're going to need a ruler and a regular pencil. So let's go ahead and get started together. We're going to begin with this square first. Now I'd like for you to just take your ruler and line up that first bottom left corner with our vanishing point, and we're going to lightly draw a line. Now we are going to do that with our next corner, the bottom right corner. We're going to lightly draw that line. Now we have 2 more corners to this square, but if you put your ruler right along the edge, you can see that those corners go behind this square. So we only need the 2 corners that are closest. Now we have already drawn in the perspective from each corner that we can, so we're going to end our front edge so that it mimics this first edge. So this edge here, I want you to just double up that line really quickly with me. We're just adding a little bit of thickness to that line so we can really see what we're trying to mimic. Now we're going to place our ruler on top of it, and we're going to line up one of our lines so that it's on top of the edge of our square. So go ahead and do this with me, and you can choose any measurement, but we are overlapping rather than trying to come in from this side. So take a look up at the board and notice the difference between trying to draw from the bottom edge versus overlapping with your ruler so you can line it up with that edge to make sure it's nice and flat. Now let's go ahead and draw in that front edge, and then we can erase the bottom of that shape. There we go. And there is our first form that we've created. We took the shape of a square and turned it into a cube. Now it's got 3 dimensions: height, width, and depth, which is going backwards in space. Now let's move back over to the sphere, or the circle. We're going to turn it into a cylinder. Now, rather than finding a corner, we are going to put our ruler right on the edge and rotate out until we can touch that circle for the very last time. And we're going to just lightly draw in a line connecting back to the vanishing point. Same with the other side. Scooch until you can't scooch anymore, until it's just barely touching the edge, the farthest out that you can go on a rounded edge. Now I want you to do the same thing with me. We're going to just double up that front line just so that you can see like that actual curve. And then we're going to decide how thick we want this to be, and we're going to mirror that same angle exactly. So we're just curving that around, and let's go ahead and erase our extra lines. Now the reason why we started with the forms that are in front is because we want to be able to end them and have them go behind these ones since they are closer. Now we are going to hop back up into the triangle. Let's go ahead and place our ruler right on that front corner and then the side corners. And we're just tracing those back to this front edge. Now we get to decide how thick we want our lines to be, our shape, and we're going to choose a measurement. So I'm choosing just 1/4 inch, and I'm going to draw that out here. Now I have to remember how many boxes I had between the actual shape and where I drew my line, so that when I move it over here, since I did 1/4 inch, I have 2 rows of boxes between my edge here. And I'm going to just draw that line in, and that gives me my form. And let's go ahead and erase the excess. All right, now we've got one more. Let's go ahead and start with this box up in the top right. We're going to start with that front corner, draw it back, the side corners, draw it back. And this back corner goes slightly like right along the edge of that cylinder we made. So it's kind of like cutting right into it. Now we're going to choose a measurement. So this time maybe I'll do 1/2 inch. And I'm going to line it up so it's overlapping. And then I'm going to choose that same measurement on the second side. So I'm going to line it up right at 1/2 inch. and draw that in. All right, now we are just going to go through and erase these lines. And the last step for you today, we are going to choose one spot, one side, either the left or the right, and you can pick which one you'd like it to be, but I'm just going to draw on a sun on the left. Here's my little sunshine. Now we can show ourselves the direction of the lines that we're getting from this sun. So we can even like draw these lines to help ourselves to understand. Now it's coming from the left and near the top. So that left side is going to be the brightest of all of these. And we are going to go in and shade that bottom edge to be our darkest. So let's go along. And for our triangle, simple. For the, I guess our pyramid, our cubes, simple. We've got just like that darker edge along the bottom. But for our cylinder here, let's darken, and then we're gonna fade it up as it gets closer to the side with the sun. Now for our front edges, let's do like a medium tone, so we're just not gonna fill it in quite as much. So that we have three values, the brightest side, the darkest side, and the medium side. And there we go. Thank you guys for watching. Hello, and welcome to the second follow along for 1 point perspective. Today we are going to follow along all together doing this step by step, and we are going to need a ruler and a pencil. We are working with one vanishing point, and the vanishing point is always on the horizon line. And remember, that represents your eye level or where the land and sky meet together. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start with our shapes that are closest to the vanishing point and do those first. Let's begin with this arrow, and all of the corners, all of the indents, all of those outermost edges, we draw a line all the way back to the vanishing point, and we want to draw them lightly so that we don't have too much eraser work to do. Now we've got one little corner that's right over here that is going to go backwards in space. So we've got just that kind of little tiny guy that's hanging out. Now let's end by mirroring what's in front, and I'm just gonna do a 1/4 inch. So I've got 2 rows of squares. I'm going to make my mark there. And now I'm going to line it up with 2 rows of squares on the other angle and make it connect. And then we can erase our excess lines. Now you might have noticed with this first form that we have another couple of corners, but they are behind what is already drawn, so we do not need to add anything else there. Let's go ahead and start with the star. We're going to draw our front corner leading all the way back, and then the next indent, then the next corner. Let's go ahead and do all of these front corner and angle indents first. All right, so we've got all of the corners and the indents drawn. Now we're gonna go and draw the lines coming from those back angle points. Now we're gonna just add one on the top and one on the bottom. Now we get to decide the thickness. Maybe I will make this a small one. So maybe I'm gonna do just 1 row of squares, and I'm going to draw that. And I'm going to find my next angle out. I'm going to match that with 1 row of squares. Now same here, 1 row of squares, 1 row of squares, and then I would erase the rest. So we'll just erase the excess lines, and I'm holding it down on either side of my form as I erase, just to help make that not like crinkle my paper so much. Now let's do this X, kind of a thick bubble X. We're going to do the indents, and we can just stop when we run into this arrow so that we don't have to erase behind it. Now we're just gonna draw all the way up from each of these corners and indents out to that vanishing point. All right, and we're gonna do those backwards angles as well. So it should look like this. Now remember that we are mirroring that front edge. So I'm gonna do just one row of boxes again, and I'm gonna just line it up so it matches that angle. So I'm just placing that row like right at the front edge of all of those spaces. And then let's do that again for the back edges as well. So we've got some skinnier thickness on this one. And then we will erase the excess. All right, now we've got one left, and this is a rounded shape and a hollow shape, which are both very important to remember as you are working through these steps. So let's push our ruler to the outermost edge of this circle on both sides. And remember, you can stop when you hit another shape. We don't need to draw past it. Now for the trick here, we need to decide the thickness, and I'm gonna do just maybe like another kind of medium thick one, but remember we're copying that front angle the best we can. When it's curved, we can't really use our ruler to do that. Now what we're gonna do next is I'm going to copy that same thickness on the inside here so that it looks like it's going through. So we are just curving at like that same angle from the inside to make that same thickness from here and here and here and here. It should be close to the same thickness. Let's go ahead and erase our extra lines. All right, now we're gonna draw in our sunshine. Let's do maybe the top right or wherever you'd like, as long as you're following these rules. Now we are gonna just draw in these lines so that we can see like right where it's hitting. Just all these lines kind of leading back. Now we can see that the darker side is going to be underneath. Maybe let's do it like the side that's going to be the side facing us. So we're gonna come in and we're gonna do, our brightest side is like the right edge. So let's try this arrow first. So let's do the darker side being the front edge for all of these. So we're gonna just fill in that front edge, the shape. That's gonna be our darkest side. All right. Almost there. So we're just filling in the fronts of these. That's gonna be our darkest value. Now we're gonna come in and we're gonna fill in our light medium on the left. And we'll keep everything on the right nice and light. So on the curved one, we're gonna fade that out so it's getting brighter. And we're gonna fade just a medium on the inside. Now this on the top of the arrow will get a little bit lighter as it reaches here, but this is actually gonna catch some shadow because it's behind where the sun is shining. This one will be medium, medium, maybe light, medium, and light. All right, there we go. Thank you guys for following along. Hello and welcome to our first 2-point perspective practice. Today we are going to begin by doing a follow along style practice to learn how to draw something in when it's got 2 vanishing points. That means that it's the difference between standing like in the center of the street, looking all the way down the street, which is not safe to do. Instead, this is standing on a corner where you can look and see both directions of the street getting smaller and smaller as you look in both ways. So that's the difference, is where you're standing on the road is essentially how I like to explain it. Are you in the middle of the road looking down, or are you on the corner looking at both roads getting smaller? Now let's go ahead, and this front corner is called our leading edge. So if this eraser was a building and this was the building that was closest to you, the leading edge is the corner that is the closest to you on the corner where you can see the two streets getting smaller. So that front edge, the corner closest to you, is called the leading edge. Now, I have provided the leading edges to make sure that these all stay consistent for your practices. Now, our first step is to connect the top of the leading edge to both vanishing points. Let's do that together. We're going to connect the top of this line to both of these vanishing points. Now let's connect the bottom. That's our second step. We're going to connect the bottom of the leading edge to both vanishing points. So it should give you kind of like a check mark shape. All right, now what we're going to do next is we are going to come in and draw our first building. So we are going to take our ruler, and let's just make it the width of your ruler here. So we're just gonna trace the width of our ruler, and we wanna line that up so it's nice and straight, because all of our lines should either be straight up and down compared to our leading edge, or going to a vanishing point. Now let's do maybe a smaller width. You can choose on the side here. I'm gonna do like a 1/2 inch, a little less. And now I've drawn in the sides. We have to decide our sides. We have to choose where in that check mark our sides are going to be. Now for this first one, we are just going to erase the top line connecting to the vanishing point. Let's leave this bottom edge, but we'll erase the top. So it should look like this. Now we are going to take each of these corners. Let's make like a little dot, just so you can see them a little clearer. And we're going to connect these corners to the opposite side's vanishing point. So this corner that's on the left, let's connect it back to the right side vanishing point. And this corner on the right, let's connect it to the left side vanishing point. So just connecting to the opposite side. And that is going to give us the roof of this little building that we see. Now we are going to come in and draw a couple more boxes, and I would like for you to practice drawing them in a city style. So we are just going to draw in another leading edge, and you get to decide on the right hand side how tall you want it to be, but you do need to overlap with your ruler to make sure that it's straight compared to the other lines. So go ahead and draw your next leading edge. Now, our first step, connect the top of the leading edge to both vanishing points. Let's do that, and you don't have to draw it all the way out if you would rather save some erasing time. So we drew from the top to both vanishing points. Let's connect the bottom to both vanishing points, and notice it's already connected on one side. So now we just need to come in from this side and connect that back, and we'll stop as soon as we hit this first building that we drew. So we've connected the top, we've connected the bottom. Now we decide our sides. Let's take our ruler and we're gonna overlap our leading edge, and I'm just gonna do 1/2 inch here. I'm gonna draw a side coming down on either side so that it's nice and straight. Make sure you don't have a weird angle. And now we're gonna connect our corners to the opposite side. So here are our two corners. Let's connect the right corner to the left side and the left corner to the right side. And you don't have to draw those lines all the way out because it just gives you more to erase. So now we should have just like a sliver of a rooftop. Now let's do this next one so that it's above the vanishing point. So let's go ahead and draw one last line. We're gonna draw it up above. So it's gonna be behind and taller than our horizon line. So when something is below our eye level, we see the top of it. If something is above our eye level, then we see the bottom of it, right? So we are going to draw this building as if it's above our eye level. Now we're gonna start by connecting the top to both vanishing points. And the next step is to connect the bottom, but we can't see it, so it doesn't really matter. So the next step is to decide your sides. So I'm gonna come in and using my overlapping ruler, I'm going to draw 2 straight lines. And then we can erase. All right, now we are going to shade in so that the left side is our darkest side. Let's go ahead and just shade that in to be our darkest, the left of each leading edge. And we're just filling that in. Now we're gonna do our medium tone on the right. So just a little bit lighter. And then we're gonna leave our roofs white. And there we go. Wonderful job. Thanks for following along. Hello, and welcome to the final practice for this page for 2-point perspective. Today we are going to be practicing drawing 2-point perspective when it is below the horizon line, and we are just continuing to practice the buildings that we had begun last time. So let's recall our steps. First, we've got our 2 vanishing points and our horizon line that represents our eye level or the separation between land and sky. Now we've got our first line, which is called the leading edge. That's that front corner of a building that's the closest to you if you're standing on a corner. Now, our first step, connect the top of the leading edge to both sides. Let's go ahead and do that together. All right, the next step is to connect the bottom of the leading edge to both sides. Let's go ahead and try that. All right, so we've connected the top of the leading edge, we've connected the bottom of the leading edge. Now we decide our sides. So we're going to take our ruler and overlap this leading edge so that we can make sure that it is straight compared to this line. I'm gonna do just a full ruler width and then maybe like 1/2 inch on the other side. Now that we have decided our sides, let's erase just this top line. Now we've got 2 corners. It's almost like an open book. Like if you imagine a book that's open, we've got that spine in the front and then the 2 corners of the cover. So right here are our 2 corners. Let's take this right corner and connect it to the opposite side on the left vanishing point. Let's go ahead and connect those here. And we don't need to draw the line all the way across just to save on erasing. And then let's connect the right corner to the left side. And that should give us a nice little roof. All right, next we're going to draw the second leading line. We're gonna overlap one of the lines that's vertical with our ruler so that we can make sure it's nice and straight. And you get to draw this height at any height you'd like. Maybe a little, we'll do this one a little bit taller, that's fine. Now we'll connect the top to both vanishing points. And we're gonna connect the bottom to both vanishing points. But notice it's already connected on one side, so we only have to do that partially, and we only do it until we reach the beginning of our first building. Now we get to decide our sides. So we're going to take our ruler, we're going to overlap with our lines to make sure it's nice and straight, and we're gonna choose a width, and we're going to just draw vertical lines going down. Now, because I drew this building above the horizon line, I don't see the roof because I am looking from underneath that height rather than above that height. So let's draw one more. We're gonna make this another tall one, so let's find one of our vertical lines to overlap with to make sure it's straight. Now we connect the top to both vanishing points. All right. We connect the bottom, but you can't see it, so we're on to the next step. And now we're deciding our sides. So we're gonna overlap, we're gonna draw those lines straight down. Here we go. All right, now let's go ahead and draw in the shading to match our first practice. We're gonna do the left-hand side to be nice and dark. So let's fill that in with our darkest value. That got a little scribbly. All right, that's fine. Okay, so we're filling in our darkest value on the left. All right, now we're gonna do a medium value on the right-hand side, and we're gonna leave the top to be our lightest. All right, and that was our last practice. Thank you so much for following along. I hope that this is helping you to understand perspective, and we will continue these practices. Thanks for following along.